Barrett, I hope your weekend was great, my friend. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
What's up, Ryan? How are we doing, man?
Good.
It was definitely a solid weekend. Solid weekend for sure.
Oh, it was great. It was great, man. And I just got to get some analysis. You lead us out today. And looking back, just maybe some observations with Alabama's big performance there in Oxford.
Well, first of all, let me ask you, is there any panic level today about any position group on the Alabama offense, or is it the coast pretty much clear?
No. You were our therapist last week. We referenced you all, but it's an annual tradition. I mean, it wouldn't be right if we didn't get you to talk us off the cliff, and I made that statement the opening couple of minutes. I said Barrett was right, we were wrong.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, you know what? Honestly, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Alabama, I think I said on your show, Ryan, the first week I was on here, I think this is going to be the best offense Alabama's ever had in the history of football, and their football at the University of Alabama. Well, who knows? Maybe at the end of the year, it could be one of the best offenses we've ever seen. And I know I'm just spewing rat poison here, so hopefully none of the players are listening to this. But, you know, I haven't seen anything so far that made me think otherwise. I mean, literally the only way to slow these guys down is to take Tua out. You know, and I understand that Ole Miss's defense, they're a sieve at best, and they have not slowed down anyone, including Southern Illinois. So I understand that tougher times will be ahead defensively, but still, it just the way they're scoring and the pace, and I mean, it honestly felt like a game where they could have scored 100 points, honestly, if they had kept the starters on the field the whole night. And you just haven't seen that a whole lot at Alabama. So, you know, there's not a whole lot to correct or notice other than just everything was clicking, everything was dominant, everything was working, and it was a good night to be on offense.
Barrett, when you're clicking the way, because you've been a part of some really, really good offenses here in Tuscaloosa. I mean, some great performances. Yeah, I mean, I know it's different looking offense, but when you're so balanced and a defense doesn't know which way you want to beat them, how much is it when you walk in knowing that you're going to get all these skill position playmakers involved and you kind of keep that defensive side of the football guessing on what you're going to beat them and how?
Yeah, I mean, that's the strangest thing for me when I'm watching the tape of Alabama is to see some of these boxes they're getting to run the football. I mean, historically, they've never gotten boxes that look like this because what I mean by boxes, I mean the number of players on defense in the box. You know, generally, you're always going to try to bring an extra defender in the box against Alabama and try to slow down the run game and make the quarterback beat you. But I feel like teams have seen enough film this year to know that's probably not a good idea. So they're seeing some extremely favorable looks. You know, when you can throw the football like that, man, it really opens everything else up. And then beyond that, the RPO game has been so effective, and the way Tua just is able to survey the field. I think the thing that's impressed me the most about Tua, because obviously we could talk about him probably the whole show, but the thing that's impressed me the most is just his ability to diagnose the field and interpret information so quickly. I mean, for a guy who's a sophomore who really only has 3 starts, it's pretty incredible the way he can diagnose the field. I'm sure you listened to Coach Saban's press conference where he talked about Tua making a throw that he wasn't a side of the field he wasn't even supposed to read. I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't just happen with most guys. And I mean, Tua just has such a great understanding for where he needs to go with the ball. It almost looks instinctive. I mean, certainly he's an intelligent guy and he studies film, I'm sure. But some guys just kind of have a feel for the game, and I think Tua has that. And I mean, you can see it out there. He has total command of the offense. He looks calm in the pocket, and all those intangible phrases you want to use. But he just has this ability to somehow see everything at once. And I think that's, you know, combine that with the lead arm talent and great leadership, and I think that's what makes him so special.
Yeah, it's fun to see all these guys getting used and the way that we keep those defensive coordinators guessing. How much do you think, because think about it, I mean, even though Nick Saban has made it, and we're not to there's more games, difficult games that are coming, but how much do you think the success on defense, replacing 8 starters, only returning 1 coach on that side of the football, has been that you go up against that in practice when they go good on good? It kind of like when you get to Saturday, if you're facing Tua Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, good on good periods, you get to Saturday, it's almost like a break.
Well, that's a great point, Ryan. I think something interesting to think about is traditionally, you know, the Alabama, even kind of the last few years, the Alabama defense has had to face a more traditional Alabama offense, right, and practice every day. And then on Saturday they would have to go out and face, kind of what you're seeing now in college football, sort of this more spread look. And so I think, that's maybe part of the reason we saw at times Alabama would give up a few more points against those looks. But I agree with you now that that's what they're seeing every day in practice on a day in and day out basis. I definitely think it helps them adjust. And, a lot of these guys are playing really well. I mean, the defense obviously probably wasn't the main storyline in Oxford, but I thought they played extremely well. Like, that was everyone was telling me this game was going to be a shootout, back and forth, and I said the same thing to every person. I think you're underrating the Alabama defense with how effective they can be, and it's still a defense with a lot of talent on it. And then obviously, I got a lot of text messages, Ryan, a lot of text messages in the first 11 seconds of telling me that see, look, I told you it was going to be a shootout. To which I responded, it's a long game, and sure enough, it was. So I almost think in some ways the big storyline was Ole Miss's offense, and their receiving core was the best in the country. This receiving core doesn't get enough respect, but definitely the defense is not getting enough credit and respect for the job they did against what is a very potent passing attack. And I do think it's a great preparation every day in practice, but I'm sure Coach Saban loved having a game like that to kind of equip these guys and challenge them in some ways. And I would say they answered the bell and more with the way they showed up and performed on Saturday.
All right, so here we go. You work there in Memphis, which something tells me there's got to be some rebels in that office, right? I mean, there's some Ole Miss.
There's a bunch.
Okay, so what did you do? Okay, so Barrett Jones, 7:55, walking in the door this morning. What'd you do? I mean, did you have stat sheets you handed out, or did you just walk, right into the office? What'd you do?
I act like I've been there before. I don't. I'm not.
Coach Bryant coming out.
They know the deal, and I'll just say that the Black Bears are in hibernation today. I have not seen any of those Black Bears around the office. They're kind of hiding out in their dens back there, and maybe catching off of paperwork because they know. They hang their heads low. So there's no doubt they understand what happened, and there's really not much left to say. I mean, the only text I had, I was calling the Mississippi State game, and so I looked up at a certain point in the game, and I had a bunch of texts pre-game from a Miss friend of mine, and I texted him probably midway through the third quarter, and I said, "Hey, what's happening in the Bama game? I haven't been able to watch it," and I didn't get much of a response. So that's the only. If you want to call that trash talking, that's the only trash talking I did. Everything else, I just kind of let the score do the talking.
Yeah, but yesterday at church, they got plenty of sleep on Saturday night because they all left in the first quarter. I've got videos of just exiting Vaught Hemingway Stadium first quarter. I mean, they beat the traffic because it was getting ugly.
That's beating the traffic now. First quarter, that's a whole new level of beating the traffic right there.
Yes, yes, it is. All right, so let me ask you, and Barrett, in your opinion, what does Nick Saban grab this week? Is it all about going back to the basics? Is it about the process? I mean, because he even went to that press conference. Even the rat poison thing got brought up with one of those set him up on the tee type questions. What does Nick Saban do? I mean, how does he get this team back down to ground earth? Because there's some youngsters here. They're not fifth-year seniors like many of you guys where you were this dominant and you kind of have to get humbled back. A lot of youngsters out here. How do you get these guys back down to ground earth?
Well, no doubt. I have no doubt that Coach Saban is probably getting after some folks today at practice, getting everybody prepared and ready for the game. And I've always said he's half coach, half psychologist. He is certainly a great X's and O's guy, but he's probably even better just kind of understanding the pulse of the team, understanding what they need to hear, and kind of what can motivate them and how to keep those guys hungry. So I have no doubt that he's finding ways to keep them hungry. Again, not a whole lot after the first 11 seconds. There really wasn't a whole lot to correct on either side of the ball. Now I'm sure Coach Saban won't disagree with that. There were small things and little execution, and there was a turnover, but still, generally it was a pretty clean, complete game and a team that looked extremely focused. So, he'll find a way. He always does, right? That's what makes him great. He'll find a way to do it, and he'll find a way to keep those guys going. Now, I've always said I think certainly it's Coach Saban is the guy who leads that, but I think a lot of it at this point will be up to leadership. look, there's no doubt watching this team that they have the ability to be the best team in the country. I think a lot of it at this point just kind of resides in leadership and how do they keep those guys focused throughout the season, and what's practice like, and what's the intensity like, and kind of day in day out on a day in and day out basis.
Is LSU fool's gold? Is this the real thing? Is this team believing? Because when you go into a hostile environment and you're able to do what they were able to do in that second half, I mean, I've got confidence in Joe Burrow. The young man showed me something, and everybody the back against the wall. We're going to fire the coach in October. You know the storyline throughout the offseason. I mean, hottest seat in college football, and now they've beat Miami, and now they've went on the road and beat number 7 Auburn in Lee County. Your thoughts of LSU?
Yeah, I was extremely surprised. Look, I was probably more surprised than Auburn. I was kind of an Auburn believer, honestly, from an SEC analyst perspective and kind of what they had. I felt like they were an extremely complete team. I was disappointed in Jarrett Stidham, the way he played. Both the offensive line, didn't play very well. Now, look, you got to give a ton of credit to LSU's defense. Obviously, they played extremely well. But I expected more from Auburn. I really thought they would show up and would beat LSU pretty soundly, and they did not. They still probably should have won the game. If you kind of go back and look at sort of the way it all unfolded, they probably, in some ways, they outplayed LSU, but obviously that doesn't matter. LSU stole a win, and you can't take it back from them now. And you do have to give respect to Joe Burrow. Now, did they run the football very well, LSU? No, I think it was 2.5 yards a carry. At times, were they looking inept offensively? I mean, yes, they did. But like you said, they found a way to get a win. So are they fool's gold? I mean, it depends on what you think of them. If you want to rank them number 1 in the country, well, then, yeah, sure, they're fool's gold. But, I mean, I think they have the potential to be a top 10 team this year. I do. Now, look, about Auburn, just while we're on the topic, I still think they have a ton of potential. I think their kind of lack of a run game sort of caught up with them. They ran the ball a little better throughout the game, but to me it was all in Jarrett Stidham. Like Jarrett Stidham had a chance to make plays when it counted and put his guys in position to win the game, and he didn't do that. In fact, he had some costly turnovers. So, I thought before the season, and I'll get a lot of hate for this, but I had to rank the SEC quarterbacks, and this was, keep in mind, I'd only seen Tua for half of football. I ranked Jarrett Stidham number 1. I thought he was going to come in and have a great year, but he played pretty well the first few weeks, but he was not great in that game when it counted most. So we'll kind of have to see where Auburn goes from here. They still have a really good defense, but I was disappointed. To me, the West picture as a whole, I look at it and I think Alabama is kind of at the top, and then Auburn, LSU, and Mississippi State. There's not a whole lot of separation there. To me, between those 3 teams, I think we might see kind of a round robin between that group right there. It'll be interesting to see if kind of one of those teams emerges as the second best team in the West. Because I called State this weekend. Let me tell you, they're pretty good as well. So they've got a good team down there in Starkville.
And that's a underrated environment there in Starkville. I mean, I know we take shots at Starkville and all those different things, but that's a fun place to watch a football game.
It was, absolutely. I had to make sure I had my headset on tight down there because of the cowbells, and my ears are still ringing a little bit. But it's definitely a fun environment. And I made one too many jokes about the cowbells on my broadcast. We got some unhappy tweets from the Bulldog faithful. So I enjoyed being down there. And you're right, it is a fun environment. They were playing against Louisiana Lafayette, so it was. I mean, it's a good environment as it will be when you play against teams like Auburn, LSU, and Alabama. But it is. People down there love Mississippi State. They love the school, and it was a good place to call a game.
Who do you have this weekend?
I have Georgia Tech against Clemson on radio.
Okay. That's solid, man. I cannot wait to pick your brain because I want to know more about this Clemson team from someone there and kind of getting the inside scoop.
Me too. I watched some film of them this past weekend, and I was not impressed with what I saw. They played an extremely sloppy game. Now, I know they kind of have a reputation of kind of doing that and not showing up for a few games per year, but then when the lights are on, they kind of try to bring their A game. So we'll see what happens, and I can't wait to see him up close and personal as well. I think Trevor Lawrence will eventually be a star, but I think he's got a long way to go.
Barrett, I'm going to throw it back to you. We always have a chance to talk about our faith and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'll throw it back to you to get us through the work week.
Sure, I'm going to read out of Joshua 1. It's Joshua 1:8. It says, "Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it." I think reading the Bible to me is in some ways not emphasized enough today in our Christian culture. I heard a pastor joke one time that really stuck with me. He said, "Imagine if you get to heaven and God looks at you and he says, 'What you read in my book?' And you respond and you say, 'You know what? I read parts of it. I read excerpts. I heard it broken down in sermons, but I really never got around to reading the whole thing or studying it myself.'" And I think a lot of Christians, that's kind of the reality for them. They might read verses or verse of the day, but they really don't get in and come through the Scriptures. So, that's every morning I like to start my day with about 30 to 45 minutes of reading the Bible and praying. And I just think that's where my source of absolute truth. And if you really want to base your life on something, you probably are going to want to know what it says. So get in there, read it, wrestle through parts of it, figure out what it says, and figure out kind of how it applies to your life. So it's obviously the greatest book ever written, the best-selling book ever written. There's no better place to start your day than in the Word of God.
Barrett Jones, two-time All-American at the University of Alabama, most decorated player in Alabama, Crimson Tide history, helping us out, presented by Med Center Urgent Care Family Medicine, no appointment necessary, Tuscaloosa, Northport, Demopolis, Fayette, and Hoover, Alabama, and another location expanding. Barrett Jones, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you again.
All right, sounds good, Ryan. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.